guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, thank you so much for clicking on this video, and if you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for subscribing. On today's video, we're going to be talking about two movies, one new and one streaming, and that way if you are going to theaters or you're watching at home, you have something that may pique your interest. Let's get into it. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Hokum, and that is the movie that came out this Friday, May 1st. It currently has a 7.4 on IMDb, and IMDb is a website that I use quite often to look up movies, seeing reviews, and just kind of seeing generally what a movie's about, what actors are in it. Pretty much everything you want to know about a movie you can find on that website or the app. So this one is about a writer who goes to kind of a spooky remote hotel that his parents honeymooned at when they first got married to sadly scatter their ashes. And it's a hotel in Ireland, but unbeknownst to him, it is haunted by a witch. So I wasn't really sure how I felt about that storyline. I didn't know how much horror that would be, or if it would be too slow burn for me. So if you're new here, I do a slew of tests that I talk about in relation to how I rate a movie. And these are just things that I personally gauge a movie on, so that way if there are things that are important to you and they may resonate with you, then maybe they'll help you decide if you want to watch the movie and in theaters or wait for it to stream or not. The first of those tests is the trailer test. For the trailer on this one, I wasn't sure how I felt about it because on one hand, it did seem kind of scary, but on the other hand, it also seemed kind of slow burn. I will say that I don't think it passed the trailer test. And the reason for that is because I think the trailer portrays this movie and it's heavily implied that it is horror. That is not the take that I got when I watched it, and I am a huge horror fan. Obviously, you can tell by pretty much 80% of my wardrobe being horror related and the content of my channel being mostly related to horror movies and horror lists that I like to create. That being said, I feel that when you sell a movie in a certain genre, especially horror fans are expecting horror. We don't want thriller, we don't want slow psychological twists. We want horror for what it is. Otherwise, I would prefer it to be called a thriller or a psychological slow burn, something along that line, not horror. So for me, that's why this one failed the trailer test. Not to say that it's bad, because I don't think that it's bad, and I will get into that in just a second. But just know that if you are looking at the trailer and you're expecting straight up horror, that is not what you're gonna get. Another test that I do is the husband sleep test. My husband is a sleepy movie watcher. If it is not 100% engaging or it is too slow burn, he is going to fall asleep. And if you are this type of movie watcher, or if you have a significant other or movie watching partner who happens to be like my husband, then this is the test to pay attention to. It was one that I did not think would pass this test. However, shockingly enough, it passed. My husband stayed awake through the whole thing, and I think that that is in big part attributed to the fact that with the storyline plays out, if you don't pay attention, you'll miss entirely what happens, and everything kind of hinges on the ending climax. So because of that, it passed the test. Next test that I like to do is the balance test. So this is whether or not I feel that the movie had great pacing. Was it exciting enough to justify some of those slow parts of the movie? This one does pass for me. I didn't feel like too many parts of the middle or the slower parts weren't justified, because when you get to the twist or the end or the climax, you see exactly why some of those parts needed to be in the movie for it to make sense. And because when a movie does that, I am okay when they do some slow burn parts. That is not a problem in my opinion. However, if you're someone who needs constant action in a movie and you can't really deal with a overall dark themed movie that's going to be more slower pace, this one might be a little troublesome for you. For me, for the balance, it was a pass. However, I do think that they could have upped the ante on the scary, especially if they were going to sell this movie as a horror movie. Would I buy or rewatch this movie? Yes, I do think that I would rewatch and buy this movie because it has some good little humor mixed into it. It had enough creepiness to me that it would be one that I'd want to rewatch. And whether that be on streaming for free on whatever service, or whether it be something that I want to end up buying, I think that it's worth rewatching for sure. And do I think that you should go and watch this movie in theaters or wait till streaming? When it comes to that, I think what I gauge it on is whether or not I think that the in-theater experience really was something that is necessary to get the full enjoyment out of the movie. I think this one could go either way. You could absolutely watch it in theaters and get a completely different experience than you do at home. However, if you have a great at-home situation and you're not one that likes to go to the movie theater, that's okay too. I think you could go either way, but for me personally, I think this one was worth watching in theaters because you get the surround sound, and because of how dark and overall obscure some of the scenes can be, it is easy to miss some of the details if you don't see it on a big theater screen. What did I overall rate this movie? Overall, I rated this movie a solid 7 out of 10. I do think that where it could have done better is more scary elements. However, there are some movies that need to be made for people that don't want too over-the-top scary or too gory. One thing that this one does well is that it does a lot of dark, scary, ominous, and jump scare parts, and not a ton of gore. So if you're someone who doesn't care for gore, this is a good thriller type movie to watch because it does have some of the feel of horror, like a little bit of the vibe. However, I will say that it is more of a thriller than anything, and there is a bit of mystery and things being solved and things like that. So if those are things that matter or are good elements to a movie in your opinion, then I would say this is a good one to watch for sure. But because this movie got called horror, I just feel like they should have upped the ante when it came to that, if you're going to categorize it as horror. Especially when the same actor from this movie was in the movie The Monkey, which is completely different scenario. That one, gore to the max. It's also not really scary. However, because the gore is so heavy and it's just such a dark overall storyline, that it, I think, teeters over more into the horror than this one does. Now, for a movie that I feel like absolutely nails the horror genre and is available on streaming, and I believe that this one is available on right now, is HBO Max, and that is Bring Her Back. I've seen countless Reddit threads about this movie, and it took me a while, honestly, personally, to watch the movie. I don't know why, it's just something about the trailer to me, just, you know, there's just certain movies that even if they're good or they have a lot of hype, sometimes if something about it just doesn't resonate with you, it can take you a while to watch it no matter how good it's rated. This one was one of those for me. However, I will say once I did watch it, I completely understood the hype and I agree why this one is such a great movie, and I wanted to talk to you guys about it so that way if you haven't seen it or you've been on the fence about watching it like I was, then this can be your sign to go ahead and watch it. So Bring Her Back has a 7.1 currently on IMDb, and the storyline is about a brother and sister uncovering a terrifying ritual at the secluded home of their new foster mother. I would say that really wraps things up in a nice little package. However, there's so much more like layer to the story that it doesn't really do it justice to just sum it up in that one sentence. Same tests I do for my new movies I will do for this one, so that way you understand how I gauge the movie and why I think it's good. Trailer test, pass with flying colors on this one. It doesn't sell you anything that you don't get in the actual movie, if not more. So if you watch the trailer, just know you are absolutely going to get everything you see in that trailer plus more. Husband sleep test. Ironically enough, this one was a fail. So my husband did not make it through. He just said that it slowed down too much. And this is a slow burn kind of psychological thriller. For me, it is so cringe and creepy and interesting the entire time. So I could not tear myself away from it. Even if I'm sleepy, if a story, a book, an article, anything that I'm reading or watching, if it engages me mentally enough, I just cannot go to sleep until I watch or finish the whole thing. It's a problem. This one was one of those that I could not shut the TV off. I had to know how it was going to end. And because of that, it absolutely was great for me, but my husband, not so much. I had to fill him in on what happened the next day, and after I told him how it happened, he wanted to watch it, so we did end up rewatching it so he could see the ending. So take that as you will. Speaking of that, for balance, I feel this one was a pass, and that's because even in its slowest moments, there is so much eerie, creepy, horrible things that happen in those slow moments, and they all tie in beautifully with how things end, and you're taken along for the anxiety-filled ride. And because of that, I think that it absolutely passes the balance test. There was nothing, I think, that was unnecessary as far as the way that the whole storyline plays out, and so because of that, it was a pass. Would I rewatch or buy this movie? Yes, 1,000 times yes. Even though it is a hard watch, and I will say that some of the gory parts are really hard to watch. I actually do turn away on some scenes because they're so intense. And when you see this, or if you've seen it, comment below and let me know what you thought about some of those incredibly intense moments, specifically when someone makes a snack out of some furniture, if you know what I'm talking about. So that being said, there are some moments that even for a tenured horror watcher are incredibly gruesome and hard to watch. Even so, because of how great the acting and dramatic the story is, not to mention that not only is the acting incredibly strong, but one of the main protagonists is someone who is vision impaired, and anytime that there is inclusivity like that, I completely applaud it. I think that there can never be enough representation in movies, especially horror, so I am all for that. And so I just think that was a great addition, similar to the way A Quiet Place used someone who is hearing impaired. Brilliant casting as far as I'm concerned. And overall rating, what I gave this one was a 8 out of 10, and that's because I just think rarely does a horror movie, especially a newer one, really stay with you and make you think and just kind of worm its way into your brain. Overall, this one is just a great movie. It is amazing acting. Once there's action going on and things get crazy, it just kind of keeps on going. There is that element of someone who should be trustworthy not necessarily being believed, and someone being a master manipulator. And when those types of things are involved and you get to see somewhat of a redemption, those things resonate with me. And if that's something that you happen to like, dislike, whatever in your movies, just know that there is heavy parts of that in this movie. But overall, I think if you have not seen this and you do have the HBO Max subscription, absolutely check it out. It is worth watching. If you've seen either one of these movies, let me know in the comments below. Let me know what movies you're looking forward to seeing. I made a movie list of the upcoming horror movies that are coming out this year, and if you have not seen that, you can check that out here. Also, if you're not a subscriber, definitely think about hitting that subscribe button. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye guys.